Hi and welcome to the channel. It's Machine Dana and you're about to watch another Factorial video. In this video I'm going to be going into some more detail into some practical examples of how you can use circuit networks in your factory. Hopefully this video gives you some ideas on how you can apply some of the newly learnt skills about circuit networks in your own factory. Some ideas for just quality of life stuff or some vanity stuff or maybe some decorative stuff as well. I've made some more detailed videos previously surrounding managing train networks, surrounding supply and demand levels, train crossings and a few other little bits and pieces like that. So feel free to browse my Factorial playlist. In this video I'm going to go into how you can I'll go into some detail about how you can manage your logistics quantities and bufferings and things like that, some supply and demand levels, regulating liquids and cracking and things like that for oil, managing trains and train stations, avoiding death with train crossings, although I'll try to not go into too much detail in that, so there's a separate video for that. Power switches for switching between different power sources, for example steam powered into nuclear powered into solar power. And also some decorative stuff as well. So if you find this useful, please do thumbs up the video. If you don't find it useful, maybe don't. If you want to see more videos, feel free to subscribe, and please do, if you've got any ideas that I miss or any ideas that you'd like me to go into more detail on, please do just spend a minute dropping a comment below. I always enjoy hearing comments from viewers and ideas and stuff that you guys come up with. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so we're in the main factory now at the moment. First and foremost, if you see any funny colours, shapes, objects, items, anything funny whatsoever, it's more than likely to be a mod. If you want to know more about the mods that I use, I will link the video to the mods that I use in the description below. First things first, decorative uses that you can use for the factory. And I wanted to illustrate that through, of course, looking at my own YouTube sign. So here I've got obviously the YouTube symbol, and this is my kind of Machine Dana logo. They're really simple networks, these. All I've done for these particular networks is put a constant combinator down on the floor. I've got this constant combinator outputting a single red signal. I've obviously laid out the lamps in the shape that I want, in this case the YouTube play button. And all I've done is set the lamp to, when it gets connected to the circuit network, you should see connected to network here just by connecting the wires. I've used the red wires for obvious reasons. All I've done here is set the lamp to use colours. It's connected to the network, and I've set signal 1 is less than 1. When this signal is less than 1, use colours. Now obviously it's this signal and not the 1 signal that I'm using, so the 1 signal is less than 1, so it will use colours and it will be enabled. It's a bit of a weird way that I've decided to do that logic, but it works. The output is the same, the lamps do work, so there you go. Similar thing over here, I'm outputting a pink signal. It looks more kind of purple to me, like my logo. I've got the output switched to on with the constant combinator, and same thing, if I was to swap this around, it will then kind of turn it on or off, so you can use the logic in that kind of way. So that's a decorative practical application, and I'll go into really basic signals to signify there are levels in a chest of a product. This is a decider combinator that I've set up. It's connected to a storage chest and a lamp. This decider combinator tells me that when there is more than 99 stone, I want you to output 1 green signal. And therefore I'm saying that if my quantity of stone in that chest is more than 99, I'm happy with the quantity in there. It's a really basic way, just basically green or nothing way of showing if a product's levels are fine. So if I now place 100 stone in there, this shows as 1. And it's quite compact, so I could move this combinator here, I could move this light here, and you've got 4, literally just 4 spaces, 4 sprites that have been used up by this very simple technique. And you can do the same with the storage tanks as well. Next practical application, I have done a much more detailed version video of this train setup that I've got here, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail in this. Please see the link to the video or in the Factorial playlist. But all I've done here is link the rail signal with the output signals. I've put it to read signal. I've connected that with the circuits all the way to here. These signals will simply be read from that signal there. and I've then said to use colours when anything equals 1. So if there's any colour, use the colour if the signal is one of any colour. And that's what I've done to them all. So now because there's a train in that spot there, this signal here in particular will show as red because it's showing this space is taken by a train, in which case the lights also show as red. Within the video that I show for this, I also show configuring a speaker as well, so there's actually a noise control. All that means is, you know, I can see visually there's a red, sort of red for no and green for yes and amber for there's a train coming, maybe be cautious. Liquids management, again, I've done a more detailed video on this particular section here, so if you want to know exactly how to set this up, please do look at that particular video. If you're just getting some inspiration, very briefly, I've connected all these tanks together. These two decider combinators basically look at the water signal that comes in from the storage. Hovering here shows there's 197,000 currently. These two decider combinators set the upper limit and the lower limit for, so this is the upper limit 100,000, the lower limit is 40,000 for the amber. The red decider combinator here, so these two signals feed into the amber. The red decider combinator just takes the raw data from the tanks, basically says if it's less than 40, show red, output one signal of red, and then it outputs it to this traffic light system here. So that logic goes into that one there, the amber logic goes into this light here, and the green logic goes into the green logic here. And this is if there's more, equal to or more than 100,000, output one green signal. And that just quickly gives me an idea of what's in my my liquids. And I can, because I'm pressing Alt on the keyboard, I can see what's in the tanks very quickly just by taking a quick look. If I go on my map, I can also just scroll through and see what my liquids are looking like at the moment. Obviously this one here is not looking too great at the moment, so I need to do some work on that particular liquid or gas. Product level controlling of supply, really. So this is to not stuff your networks and your logistic networks on a product by product basis. Talking about more about intermediate products and final finished products here, rather than the bus, perhaps the bus level products. So and these are, so most people will be familiar with, hopefully, passive provider chests. When you place items into a passive provider chest, they become available to the logistics network, but they're not actively pushed out anywhere, they're just available, so passively available products. All I've done here, just to illustrate how this works on a product by product basis, you can control the product level in a chest simply by clicking the X button and clicking onto the items that you don't want. So the sprites that are in red here will not allow product to be put into those spaces. But that's a little bit unsophisticated. It takes quite a lot of micromanagement. It's not as dynamic. So what I've done instead is on this particular grabber, this grabber's taking away a distillery, Bob's Mods, and that is one of the recipes here for a distillery too. So I'm saying for this grabber, and again this grabber's a right angle grabber, so I've configured it to grab from here and drop at the right angle. Again, it's a Bob's Mods thing here. This grabber takes from this assembler, places it in the passive provider chest. That passive provider chest is then used either as a product in its own right, so that can be accessed if I want distillery 1s, or as a component in distillery 2s here. So I've set the grabber to only work, to only operate, enable, disable, if distilleries is fewer than 50. And I've connected that grabber, that inserter, to the chest. So it's working off the data from that particular chest as a normal storage chest. Now note here, it's not connected to the logistics network. This is a circuit condition. I'll do separate videos for logistics network stuff. So I've enabled or disabled that based on the quantity of distilleries being basically less than the amount that I need it to be. So I'm saying I always want to have at least 50 distilleries available, and that's why that is continuing to make, and that's why it's got a green light on that assembler there. This assembler here is a dummy assembler. If there's anything in there and this can take the product, it will take the product. But then I've got this grabber here coming from this assembler. The inserter takes the product from this assembler and places it in this passive provider chest. But again, I only want to have a maximum of 50 of those products in that chest there. I don't want it to continue to making distilleries for the fullness of this chest, because that's just a waste of resources. So that's at product level. I could then show this more at kind of intermediate and probably more raw product level by going through information about the bus line and bus line buffers. There's a pretty high chance if you've got a product on the bus line, at some point you might need most of your products in your hand, or you may need it in your logistics network. So for that reason, and also just having an extra buffer of products can be a good thing. I don't do it so much now. What I used to do is have like steel chests or whatever, and have them have product in them so that I could have them as a buffer in case the supply into the bus line was low. The problem with that is the grabbers only place onto one side of the chest, so you don't have fully balanced belts. And I've done a separate video on belt balancing as well. So I tend to use logistics networks and make sure that the supply into the bus lane is more than sufficient these days. So all I'm doing here is I've got a bus line that first of all goes under a RoboPort, in this case a RoboPort 2. Again, that's a Bob's Mods thing. This again, the inserters, in this case express stack inserters. Yeah, so in this case I've actually connected via circuitry with these wires. I've connected all of the inserters together and then connected one of those to the logistics network. Connecting an inserter to the logistics network connects everything else to that same point on the logistics network. I think if you connect two different chests to the same inserter, you get double the quantities that are in the logistics network, so it's always advisable to only connect once. And all I've done here is I've said in the logistics network tab, if at first I've said connect, so you have to actually connect it. If iron is less than 200, because it's in the logistics network, it will look at not what's in the chest, it will look at what's in the logistics network. If there's fewer than 200 iron plates in the logistics network, I want you to enable, and then that will disable it if it goes above the 200. And what that does then, it takes account of all of these chests and storage elsewhere in the logistics network as well. We've got 52 in there, we've got 410 in there plates in the network, so all of these inserters are set. You can see the red light is set to off. If I take out that iron, they might, yeah, so all of those then enable until they get to 200 and then they stop again. A really simple circuit condition, and all I've done is shift right click on that and then shift left click onto the ones here to paste the logic across those other inserters. And I've done that for all the products on my bus line. So anything that is on my bus line, and there's a lot of products on the bus line, is available in my logistics network, but is not, those grabbers are not, those inserters are not constantly putting product into the logistics network and therefore overwhelming it. It's a really important point because you do not want your logistics network to be overwhelmed with products. So that uses circuit network, but also connected into the logistics networks. Another way you can use circuitry is to regulate the number of robots in your networks. Now this could be construction robots and also logistics robots. Very quickly here, all I've done is connect inserters to a RoboPort. Now these are my logistics robots 2 in Bob's Mods, logistics robots 1, and same again, construction 1, construction 2s. The construction 1s are a component in 2, and so on. Logistics 1's a component in logistics 2. Now, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the best available robot, which is the logistics 2 robot, and I'm only enabling that inserter to operate if Y is less than 2000. So the enable disable if Y is less than 2000. Now this is a circuit network and not a logistics network. It's not connected to the logistics network. If I was to connect it to the logistics network, it's not looking at what's actually available to the RoboPorts. It's looking at what's physically in a chest within the logistics network, and that's why you don't connect it to a logistics network. You can set stack sizes, read hand contents and stuff like that. I'm not so concerned with that. So what is Y then? So Y is less than 2000. If you click on the RoboPort, you can say, click this button here, read robot statistics. This reads robot statistics within this particular ring-fenced specific network. Now you can have multiple robot networks in different areas of your base. So the standard, you can change these by the way if I want to change any of those. But the standard is X, Y, Z, T. And you look at either total or available. Available is robots that are currently in use, or not currently in use. So if you've got 2,000 robots, but all 2,000 of your robots are currently doing something, you have 0 available robots, and then you would use Z if that's the condition you want to use. If you want to use total construction bots instead, so I've got 2,000 regardless of whether they're in use or not, it's the total quantity of robots that I want to look at, then it would be the signal T that you use. So in this example I use Y, which is available logistics bots, because I'm grabbing logistics robots. And in this inserter, again, circuit network, enable, disable, T is less than 2,000. T in this case being construction bots from here. And literally all I've done is connect the grabber to a roboport, connect that grabber to a roboport. And as you can see, by hovering the text that's here when I hover over, I've got more than 2,000 logistics and more than 2,000 constructions, and therefore both of those inserters are not grabbing extra robots into the network. Very, very quick, easy win to manage the number of robots in your network rather than doing it manually. There are quite a lot of detailed videos about this out there, and I might make a more detailed video about this at a later stage. You can use circuit networks to regulate how much or little cracking you do to convert one product into another product. The classic one in vanilla is it's converting heavy oil into light oil and light oil into petroleum. Normally petroleum is the choke point on your products, so having that as the final most sort of distilled oil. So to do that, all I've done here, I mean, again, Bob's Mods, ignore the fact that they're blue pipes, they're plastic pipes in Bob's Mods. I've set up some cracking here, I've left some spaces for beacons. The cracking here in this example takes water and heavy oil and it cracks it to 30 light oil. I've put a little bit of a layout here. I've not connected any of those to the logistics network or the circuit network in any way. All I've done very basically is have an enable or disable condition on the pump from the main supply of oils on my train networks. So all that happens is this pump here, so I've connected the pump to some logic, which I'll go into in a second. This pump will only allow heavy oil into the heavy oil to light oil cracking through the logistics, through the circuit networks that I've got here. If heavy oil is in my network, if heavy oil is more than 125,000, I'll hover above here, you can see heavy oil is on 199. So that condition is being met. It will output one blue signal. But I also want light oil to be less than 175,000 to output 1. And to enable this to work, I need the green signal to be 1. This decider combinator will say if blue signals is 2, then output that 1 green signal that is needed. So if this is true, there'll be 2 input signals into this logic here, which will then output 1 single green logic for this one to work. And then that literally frees up the pump to allow the heavy oil in for the cracking based on that logic. So I'm using here just decider combinators for all of the logic that's needed, and it's quite a simple setup that you've got there. As you can see here, if I hover over this one here, there's only 1 input signal for the decider combinator to work, and that is that I think that the heavy oil is above its threshold, 199. But the thing is, the light oil is not below 175,000, and therefore I simply don't need to crack product into light oil. I don't need it. I've already got enough in my network, so this is not going to work. A similar thing here, almost identical setup. I want the petroleum to be less than 175,000, which tells me that I need to bump up the supply of that. And I want the light oil, in order to crack light into petroleum, to be above 125,000. Same principles in outputting blue signals into here, which then outputs into a pump and determines if green is 1, then this will turn it on. Really, really simple way of managing your cracking and your liquids, which then can mean that your petroleum supply, your heavy and light oil are all regulated. Here I've got a really, really small, straightforward train stacker system, and what I haven't done but what I could do with circuit networks is to connect up the signals to output through a chain signal here to the stations, train stations themselves, and connecting also the storage of all of these chests. And essentially I could set a condition very easily that says on
by connecting the station itself, because the station you can connect to storage, which you can then connect to stackers. That is train stackers. I could say, look, I want this to connect. It's not connected, but there's let me just illustrate this. I can stick that onto there. If all of these chests had connected to storage, then the storage quantities in those would push a signal out of what the storage quantity is. And then, so now that this is connected, a circuit network, I could say enable or disable the train itself, that's the train station itself, based on a particular signal, which could be if the product is of a certain quantity, above a certain quantity or below a certain quantity. And all that means is the station switches off and doesn't allow any other trains to go into it if the quantity of product in here does not allow a train to be fully unloaded. There's quite a lot you can do with train stations. I've not got to the point where I've added those on this particular map, but there really is a hell of a lot you can do with circuit networks and trains, just to give you some idea. The final practical application that I'm just going to touch on now is how to regulate the use of one power source versus another power source versus another power source via the use of power switches. Power switches can be used in all kinds of different ways. It doesn't have to literally be power. It's just turning something on or something off. But I'm literally using this to regulate my power. I have 3 forms of power on this particular map. I've got some solar powered fields over here. I have a sort of backup steam power, and I also have some over here. I've got nuclear power as well. Now, in terms of like order of play, I would probably rather use nuclear power, which is a very reliable source of power and a very high throughput power source, and then certainly look towards solar power. And then the very last product I want to be using is steam power, because it's not very good for the environment, creates a lot of pollution. Where's pollution? There you go. It creates a lot of pollution. You want to reduce pollution so that the biters don't attack you. So all I've done here is this. I've ring fenced this particular boiler based coal burning or carbon burning, because this is Bob's and Mods carbon burning power plant essentially. I've ring fenced it so it's not connected anywhere else to my networks other than through this point here. This is its only connection. So it basically means it has to go through this device here to be able to turn on or off. And what this does is it uses a high capacity accumulator and the charge level on the high capacity accumulator to output a signal, which in this case is A. So I've connected that high capacity accumulator to this device. I've then got a power circuit which enables when A is above 0. And then what I've got here is what's called an SR latch. SR latch is called a set reset latch. And those people familiar, it's a little bit more complicated, but those people familiar with circuit networks, it's essentially like a memory device that holds a signal until a new predetermined signal is hit, and then it drops that signal and remembers the new signal until that old signal is then hit again. I'll do another video on SR latches at a later stage, but essentially what this is doing is saying, if A is 100, so the charge is 100%, then flip the switch off. And when the charge A is less than 20%, then I want you to flip the switch on and allow the steam to kick in. So the steam's not so much about running my power and network. I'm mainly using the nuclear stuff for that. But what I want to do here is have an extra buffer just to help charge the accumulators of my solar fields if they need it, but not to charge them all the time. I don't want the fuel to be burnt all the time. I want the fuel only to be burnt when the charge level of the accumulators drops below 20%. So that's just another fairly straightforward use. I've also put a light system in here that basically says if this is turned on, have it as green. If it's turned off, have it as red. So it's just very basic. So that just means as it's red, and it will be red most of the time, this power plant's not just burning fuel constantly when I know I've got a more cleaner way of making fuel via the nuclear power plant and also via my solar powered solar fields. So there's another very good use. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I've given you some inspiration about what you can do with circuit networks. I know I've not got into as much detail as I probably would have liked in every single one, but there's always a balance between having long videos and short videos and also giving you enough detail. If you do want any more information about anything in particular, please do let me know. And also, I do release weekly, I release videos sometimes daily, but certainly weekly for Factorial and also other sort of games as well. So if you have enjoyed this, do give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos, please do subscribe. Otherwise, enjoy your day and take it easy. See you.